We'd like now to continue with the insights of the Maral. Can you put it right in my mouth? Can you put it right near me?
This is the buzzing sound, and the recording doesn't hear this. We don't need it for the recording, but if you would like, you have to be very close, about this much.
So the Maral had described the significance of the Hellenistic Empire the way in which it's developed to be absorbed also in Western civilization. There are some elements in this. It means we can call it when Malchut Yavan became absorbed in Malchut Edom until the present day. The traits of the Roman subjection and opposition to the people of Israel had absorbed the Hellenistic aspects which found necessary to try and change the people of Israel with their way of thinking. Their main opposition was towards the learning of Torah as representing absolute truth above the level of the human mind, being absolute, and the human mind is relative, and also its more practical lifestyle, symbolized and represented by the service in the temple. A temple without an idol. A temple dedicated with human action and human speech to the power above, the transcendental power of the absolute God of the universe. So that is how the Maral also explains the way in which we end many of sections of the prayer book and also of learning with a request, Yhi ratzon milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu shiboneh beis hamikdash b'mheira v'yomeinu v'sein chelkeinu v'soiroseyechu. May the temple be rebuilt in our days, and then you will give us our portion in your Torah. Torah is the inner development of all of us, each one with his portion of developing his character, his mind and his heart in the Torah, the teaching, the light, the teaching, and the temple is the concept of bringing this down to earth in all our physical activities and all our speech. And he continues here, "V'lakach hayu mitnagrim el mitzvot haTorah u'leveit hamikdash befrat." That is why the Hellenists, as it started under the Seleucids, they didn't go in the way of Alexander the Great, but they tried to stop the spreading of the teaching of the Torah and also they contaminated the temple. Oh, of course you have to have a temple, but to the physical images which they regarded as gods. It says the source of this is particularly, it explains one aspect of the temple service, which is Kinei Mitzvah V'Torah Or. This is the light of the candelabrum in the Beit HaMikdash, which incorporated the physical act of kindling lights. And there are a few different types of lights which are kindled in the daily and the yearly life of the Jewish people. And the symbol is the menorah. And this is also represented by the symbol of the Jewish state. And it also has a menorah, the official symbol of the state of Israel. It's also found in many synagogues and the coins, because it's a very deep concept. But it says, Ner mitzvah v'torah, or in fact we can say, Ner mitzvah, the mitzvah is like the lamp. The lamp is the physical receptacle of the flame, of the candle and the flame. So the receptacle, the vessel of the lamp, and the wax or whatever is used, or the oil. These are the physical elements, and the flame represents the spiritual element. Because the Shmoni Yamim, Shenazilem Hanes, the 8 days, it was an 8-day miracle. There was enough oil for 1 day, when the Hasmoneans were able to purify the temple. They found it all become contaminated. There was only 1 jug left of pure oil. And we should, without now going into the details of all this, but this is deep significance. We know the menorah in the temple had 7 branches, and the 8 branches of the Chanukah are because of the 8 days, that the amount of oil that was left is only enough for one night, and it burned for 8 nights. But there's a far deeper aspect in this concept of the 7 and the 8. Otherwise, everyone discusses the question, if they found 1 little jug of oil enough for 1 night, so the miracle itself was only 7 nights. Famous question, on which I've seen collections of reaching more than 100 answers to that question. But the real significance of this is far deeper from the morale. It's the concept of the deep symbols of the numbers in the Torah. We see them. Many mitzvot are connected with numbers: 6 days of creation, the 7th day the Shabbat, the 8 days, some of the festivals, 7 days purification, then we have 50 days, but many different concepts are put forward in the Chumash and the Pentateuch have to do with numbers. So the Maral especially, basing himself on many earlier sources, not also deep investigations, he develops in a very marvelous manner, adopted also and developed both in Hasidic teaching and in teaching from the Musa school, and I would say above all also in the Hirschian interpretation of Rav Hirsch, who goes into many details to try to understand the symbolism of the mitzvot, and follows a similar pattern. So he says here, where do we find this concept of the 8? Because the Chanukah is 8 days, and he says the 8, quite apart from the aspect of the miracle, finding the oil, maybe that's a miracle, and then the should burn for 7 days, which, as we know, goes back to the concept of the Ner Marovi. I'll just say briefly at this stage, since we're dealing with the menorah of the sanctuary, it was 7 branches. So surely it would be more logical, if that's the only matter they found able to purify, or at least the first item, or to purify the kindling of the menorah, so why shouldn't we have Chanukah for 7 days? This is the basic question. That one day was what they found. What you find is not necessarily a miracle. So the deeper answer is, which is explained also in some of the writings of the Maral, we may come to it in our series, is that the Western lamp, where they used to put in oil enough to last overnight, but a miracle occurred from the time when the menorah was first kindled in the sanctuary, and this went on throughout the first temple period, and also in the second temple period, until the death of Shimon HaTzadik. Shimon HaTzadik was a Kohen Gadol on a very high level, and he's referred to in the Ethics of the Fathers. He was one of the great saints and leaders of the men of the Great Assembly, one of the last. So when he died, this miracle was no longer seen. The miracle of the Western lamp, which was turned towards the Holy of Holies. And originally, what was in the Holy of Holies? There was the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark had in it the Sefer Torah, the Golden Ark, and from the lid of the Ark came out the cherubs. And even in the desert, with the sanctuary, Hashem spoke to Moshe, Mibein Shnei Akruvim, from between the 2 cherubs. And also in the Ark were the Ruchot, the tablets of stone, which were miraculous in many ways. And the Holy of Holies was generally covered over. It's called the hidden light, the light that you couldn't see, generally speaking. But the sages say, why is it called Aron? Ar Aleph Reish Vav Nun. The root of it is Or, which means light. It's a reference to the hidden light. And also, when the Torah was completed, at the end of the Chumash, it says that Moshe had to place it into the ark. And then it continued to be in that ark throughout the time, first temple. Which explains also, in the time of Yeshayahu, it was generally kept hidden behind the parocha, behind the curtain that covered the Holy of Holies. So that's the hidden light. That is the light of Torah. The written Torah is absolute word of God, of the living God. But to understand it completely, it's hidden. So that's the Torah Shebichtav, the written Torah. The concept of the menorah, which was in the holy place, today also, if you go in the tunnel under the Kotel, there's even show you there. This is opposite the courtyard of the temple. Then so this opposite the holy place, where there were 3 vessels. This is opposite the Holy of Holies, where the Kabbalists make a midnight special tefillah, the Holy of Holies. So there's different levels. The Holy of Holies represent a transcendental level of light, which is shown in the Torah, connected with the light of creation, which says when God created the world, He created a light, a spiritual light. And where was it hidden? It's hidden in the Torah, B'Sheptav, in the written Torah. But the kindling of the light by the Kohanim, or others could also do it in the holy place, That shows us how the Torah was given over to the greatest sages of Israel to develop the Torah Sheba'al Peh, to relate to the invisible high level of Torah and recognize that's where it comes from, but it's able to produce a light that can be explained by human beings, can have a great impact upon the Jewish people and to the Jewish people of the whole world. So it's in this sense that the Marale continues. He says, this concept of the eight, this is the Malat HaTorah. The 8 days correspond to the high level of Torah, as we have explained in other places. It's the basis for the 119th chapter of Tehillim, which begins with the words Ashrei Tmimei Derech Haholchem B'Torat Hashem. Fortunate and happy are those who are able to adopt a path towards perfection. It doesn't mean that they've reached perfection, but the path towards perfection. What is that? Those who follow the Torah of Hashem. So this is a concept of relating to the eighth transcendental light through the menorah. And he says similarly also the 90th chapter of Tehillim, which says, Start Hashemayim Mesaprin Kvod El Umasid Ava Magid Rakia. There are 7 verses which describe the revelation of God in nature. And then it branches off without much of an interruption. Torah Hashem Tamima Meshivat Nafesh. The 8th verse is, the Torah of Hashem is perfect. And it brings back the soul power in the human heart. So here also, it's very interesting that a non-Jewish philosopher, Kant, he refers to this psalm, and he's the one who has the philosophy of what he calls the categorical imperative. In other words, his concept is that there's a world that is and there's a world that ought to be. Nature is the world that is, because it's that phenomena. The world that ought to be, how to behave, the choice between good and evil, he calls it the categorical imperative. Where inside there is a teaching in the heart of man that he's got to choose vice over virtue, and that he has the ability to do it. He's got freedom. The world of nature is not free. The world of nature works according to robots and reflects the harmony of God, is reflecting of nature. This is also what Einstein says. For example, Einstein says, my understanding of God is the harmony which one sees in every aspect of nature. And that's true, that's the concept of the 7. That's why also in natural areas, such as for example in sound, the octave contains 7 levels to reach the next level. In light, when light is refracted 7 colors of the rainbow, the 7 colors of the spectrum, and there are dozens of aspects in nature which follow a pattern of 7. So nature has the concept of 7. Supernature, supernatural, transcendental concepts, that's the 8th level. That turns over in Torah Hashem Tamima is the 8th verse. Eilu Shiva Pesukim Heim Ha'olam Hazeh. He said these 7 verses, first words, refer to this universe in which we live, the material universe. VaTorah hi Ha'olam Haba. HaTorah hi Al Ha'olam Hazeh. And the Torah is above this world. Shenivra b'shivat yemei Bereshit. Because this world was created in the 7 days. But the Madrega Shminis, the 8th level, is the Torah. And that's why we have to receive the Torah, as we received at the beginning, and we also reenact this every year, we have to count 7 times 7 weeks to go through the cycles of our experience in Olam Hazeh, to harmonize them, but to reach ultimately the level of the day when the Torah was given, which is the dimension above the cycle of 7, the 8th dimension, more intensively the 50th dimension. That's why it says that the Torah has 7 weeks before which we count, and we come to the 7th, which comes after the intensification of 7, which is the giving of the Torah. And he said this we have explained in other places. So I wanted to just, this time, I'll just refer to another explanation which he brings in another work of his, Eret Yisrael. The glory of Israel is the giving of the Torah. And to understand this, we're going to understand what do we mean by Torah mitzvot. So in the 2nd chapter, he develops this. I'll just introduce it with the following, that all divine activities which are mitzvot of the Torah, they correspond to the level of the soul which is in man, which is the divine power within man. And these activities described in the Torah, which you should follow, are the way whereby the human being can become more perfect. It says, הפעולות האלה הם השלמת האדם שבהם יושלם עד שהוא הבריאה אשר בא ברצון בוראו. Since God created man in his image, which means that man has within him very high spiritual level, which is also really transcendental. He can, in his soul, not the power that exists in his soul. I think today we can appreciate this more than in previous times from the near-death experience, which is reported both in the Tanakh as well as in, even more so, in the Talmud, in the Midrashim. People describe it, but which has, let's call it, a scientific exposition in our time. Because today there are millions of reports of people who were clinically dead, and they entered into, for us it's a different planet, different life experience, not based upon physical organs, but beyond the physical organs. Because to go deep in the soul of man is a tzelem Elokim. But how does he fulfill? How does he develop it? You can destroy it, or you can cultivate it. It's our duty in life to cultivate it. Today there is an attempt, unfortunately, to destroy it. The Nazis tried to destroy it, and many of them they lost the tzelem Elokim. And today there are other groups, unfortunately, also. They look at the human beings as being an intelligent animal, and unfortunately an animal of prey, an animal of destruction, with more intelligence than some of the animals, but certainly a worse beastly nature than those who we generally call beasts. So this is going to be explained in the next year. If you have a question, well,